Welcome to B&B Amplify. Are you a vacation rental owner, property manager, or superhost looking to generate repeat bookings to earn more revenue? As you already know, branding starts in the mind. A brand's initial thought is backed by an emotional feeling to give back to the world in a positive way. Branding is the portion of the experience your guests will remember you by and build a tribe-like following. We're here to help guide you by sharing your brand story to your perfect guests with innovative ideas and technology that will generate repeat bookings and increase your revenue. Today, we're simplifying insurance, a Q&A with Nick Massey from Proper.
The thing that I would like for you to kind of discuss is the liability coverage when in terms of pets. Could you give us an example of how a homeowner would be covered if a guest brought a pet and say the pet, like a dog or something, bit the neighbor's child or something like that?
Yeah, great question, Judah. And I actually have an example out of Colorado, recent one that we're defending right now. The guest did not bring a dog. The guest went out for a walk. A couple doors down, the neighbor's dog came running out and bit the guest of the property. That guest turns around and not only sues the owner of the dog, but is also suing the owner of the property they're staying at. And we can sit here and ask ourselves, well, how am I liable for my neighbor's dog? Well, when it comes to hospitality business, unfortunately, we are easily held responsible for providing a safe environment for our guests. And so that's the basis of the lawsuit. Essentially, you didn't tell me your neighbor had a mean dog, and it came up and it bit me while I went out for a walk, thus resulting in medical bills and whoever knows what else written in that lawsuit. Average dog bite is $37,000. Last year, I think there was almost $350 million in liability payout for animal pet bites and damages. So take that vice versa example. You allow pets at your property and somebody's dog jumps the fence or runs out the front door and bites the neighbor sues you. That twofold here. Number one, we don't have a limitation on animal and pets, and we don't have a limitation on breed. So you're covered up to the $1 million liability limit at a $0 deductible regardless, because there's no limitation. It's not excluded. Secondly, we don't have a coverage definition of the territory being on the premises only, i.e. premises liability, like from my presentation. So if that animal bite happens off your property line, and you're still named in that suit, you are still covered. So it doesn't matter if it was on the sidewalk or if it was 15 blocks away because the guest went on a jog and took their dog with them and it bit somebody. Named in the lawsuit, not an excluded item on the policy, coverage responds.
Wow. Okay. So they're fully covered in instances like that if this was to ever occur.
Yeah, absolutely. There is only about 8 specific liability exclusions on our policy. And so at the time one of your members gets a quote from us, they're going to receive a very detailed insurance proposal that's 7 pages long. Most insurance proposals are 1 page. It says, your house is covered for $450,000. Here's your liability limit. Here's your premium. It doesn't go into detail of what's covered, what's not covered. So we make sure to make it very transparent. We're not hiding anything from anybody. And on page 6 of our quotes, you'll see liability exclusions, and there's only 8 of them. And animals and pets are not one of them. So, that's something to be on the lookout too. I mean, if you're getting quotes from a company and you only have 1 page and you don't see anything specific to short-term rental coverage or talking about vacation rentals in your quote, you're probably talking to the wrong company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of companies, you talked about how the homeowners need to go to their current insurance policy holder or providers and ask the underwriters a series of questions. Now, what exactly is the duties of the underwriter?
So an underwriter's duty is to protect the financial interests of the company. So Lloyd's of London is a marketplace made up of underwriters. We have 12, or 15 underwriters on our policy. Every once in a while they switch. You know, some companies get off, some companies jump on, but they're the ones who are putting up the financial dollars to pay a claim. And so their job is to underwrite specific risks and say, no, we don't want this. It could be anything from, you know, just simple building questions like, does this property have knob and tube wiring? Well, if it does have knob and tube wiring, we're going to decline the risk because we don't want to insure it. That's a fire risk, and we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to pay a fire loss due to knob and tube. It could be for forest fire in California. Is this within the box of properties that we like to insure with forest fire risk? Liability items. You know, do you short-term rent or not? That's usually a question on applications now, and sometimes you'll just get a flat denial. So the underwriter's job is to make sure that the risk that's coming into the book of business is within the box of what they have a flavor to insure. Insurance companies don't want to pay claims because the more they have to pay claims, the less money they make. So that's what an underwriter is trying to do, mitigate the risk so that not as many claims are being paid out. If we don't have underwriters, then it's just a free-for-all, and claims are paid out left and right based on contract language. So if you look at, you know, I'll use California as an example, we very rarely write policies in Big Bear, California. Reason being is that it's a really, really bad forest fire risk. We do not want that book of business. The roll of the dice on losing homes in Big Bear to a forest fire is so great, Lloyd's of London just doesn't want to gamble on it. So we say, no, we're not going to write it. You might have a vacation rental. Everything else about your property fits into our box, but it's in Big Bear, California. We're not going to touch it. So again, the underwriter's duty is to protect the book of business. And if that policy that you have does not cover vacation rentals, or more or less, it doesn't have an exclusion for short-term rentals. It doesn't say anything about excluding vacation rentals, but that question goes to the underwriter, and the underwriter now effectively assesses that risk, and they make the decision of yes or no if they want that to be on the book of business.
Hmm.
And an insurance agent's job is to sell risk, right? The underwriter's job is to decline risk. So there's a happy medium with an agent. Now, one thing with proper is we're a step above your local insurance agent. Yes, we're insurance agents, but we're also a cover holder. And Lloyd's of London has given us underwriting and binding authority. So I can underwrite a risk on the front end by looking at your short-term rental listing, by having a conversation with you, the insured, by going through these particular questions, and we can tell you typically within 20 minutes if we're going to be able to write the property or not. So the insurance agent wants to sell policies. That's how they make money. They get paid a commission. They sell the policy to you. It goes to an underwriter. If the underwriter does not have information stating it's a vacation rental or doing this or doing that, then they accept the risk. Concealment. We talked about that a little bit in the presentation.
Yes.
So it's important to ask that question and get the answer directly from the underwriter and not the agent. Because your insurance agent just go, oh, you're fine, don't worry about it. No, I checked, you're covered, I got a verbal. It's like, no, I want it in writing from the underwriter. Send them an email with these questions and send it right back to me with their answers.
Which actually, makes a lot of sense, because I was actually in a group, in one of the Facebook groups, and I was reading it. The topic of discussion was proper insurance, and if anyone has the, you guys as a provider, and it was a few responses, and some people had the insurance, but what caught my eye was this one particular person's, and I would like to just read to you what this person has said. My State Farm policy with the rental rider fully covers STR. Plus, I have an umbrella policy through them up to $1 million. I have this on all 3 of my rentals, and it gives me access to steep discounts for my own home and car insurance. I'm sure proper is phenomenal, but I can't see a reason to switch from State Farm. Now, what would you say to this person? Would you talk about underwriters, or what would you just directly say to that person if that person was speaking to you?
Well, my first question to this person would be, email me your current coverage package, because I want to take a look and see where does it state specifically that you have or don't have coverage for short-term rental? Now, like I said earlier, rental is rental. Okay, so very sure that yes, your State Farm policy might attach a rider that says, hey, we cover short-term rental. Perfect, fine. It does not effectively change the base language in the policy. So ultimately, what does your base language say? Do you have a limitation for animals and pets? Is there a theft limitation? Do you have vacancy clauses? Does it cover alcohol? Does it cover assault and battery? Does it cover X, Y, and Z? Just because you have a rider that says it covers short-term rental, it's not effectively changing the actual contract language. And so, yeah, you know what? You're covered for short-term rental. Yes, they're basically saying we're not going to exclude a covered loss because you do short-term rental. We're not going to do what Travelers Insurance did to Emily Richer. However, your contract language is still your contract language unless that rider has specific changes. Most of these riders, the only change that it makes is says that you have coverage for damage caused by guests up to $10,000. It's a very low limit of insurance. Insurance brokerages like State Farm, like Allstate, like Nationwide, Travelers or Safeco Insurance, I think Pemco Insurance, there's 100 of them. They all have riders now for short-term rentals. These new coverage documents came out in about 2016. They offer them, but again, it does not effectively change the base language. Do you have premises liability? Is that a limitation on your policy? You have a $1 million umbrella with State Farm, great, but they exclude alcohol. If that was not a covered cause of loss, let's say. So they don't cover alcohol. So you have a renter get drunk and get hurt at your property, they're not covering it. They have a liquor exclusion. You had the dog example that we just talked about, but they have a limitation on dangerous breeds, and your guest brought a pit bull. That's a named a dangerous breed on their policy. You don't have coverage. You could have a $100 million umbrella. You're not covered if the policy language states as such. And yeah, we get bundling discounts. They want you to they make more money when they have your cars and all of that stuff on, and they start pulling discounts out of thin air. I've been in that market before. I've sold that insurance before. You have a discretionary discounts that you can add. And the thing is like, when you just buy home insurance from a company, you're rated at 120% the normal rate. And that gives that agent a discretionary discount of 20%. So now they can go down to 100, a standard across the line rating. And that's how they bundle you. Again, I understand you might really enjoy your State Farm agent. You might like the rate that you're paying, but what is the base coverage? That is the fundamental to how you're protected. I can go and buy homeowners insurance for my office here in Montana. My insurance agent is not going to blink twice. They're going to see that it's an address. They might think that I live here, but it's homeowners insurance for a commercial address. I have business operating here, and I'm still subject to those particular exclusions in homeowners that are not found in a commercial business policy like the proper policy.
Okay. And so does the proper insurance policy, does it cover co-hosts or those that acquire property through arbitrage?
Yeah, so a couple of different examples. So let's say, Judah, I'm the property owner, and you come to me and you say, hey, Nick, I'll manage your property for you. I'll do everything, but you have to furnish it X, Y, and Z. Traditional property management model, right? Pay a 20% commission. Cool. What I do is Judah, at that point, I'm going to ask you, hey, called my insurance agent. They said I'm not covered for a vacation rental. Who should I call? That's where, you might recommend proper, you might recommend CBIZ, you might recommend a local agent, whatever it might be. And then I buy an insurance policy and I name you as additional insured on liability. Okay, that's a traditional property management model. Then you have the model of self-managed property. You might have a co-host or something like that, somebody with experience in short-term renting or has, the superhost status, however you might do it. They would effectively be considered a property manager as well, even though you may not be paying them a hefty commission. So same process. We can name them additional insured if need be. And then you have rental arbitrage. So Judah, you come to me and you say, Nick, I am going to sign a 1, 2, or 3 year lease for your property. I'm going to pay you 20% above market value for the rent, for the monthly rent, and then I'm going to sublet it on Airbnb, Vrbo, or my own website. Okay. Me, Nick Massey, property owner, landlord, I still just buy landlord insurance. I have to have insurance in place to satisfy my mortgage, for my own particular liabilities, cover for things like fire, et cetera, et cetera. Judah, you as the let's just call you a re-renter, for sake of simplicity. You, the re-renter, need to buy insurance for that address. You now have accrued a new liability. You have contents there, and you're going to be generating revenue. So what do? Well, proper insurance actually sells a rental arbitrage policy, or sublet insurance, or re-renter insurance. To the market, we call it commercial renters insurance. So you're buying a renter's insurance policy. You can buy renter's insurance from Geico for $10.50 a month. Pretty cheap. But it doesn't cover business activity. It's only got $100,000 in liability coverage, very minimal contents. So essentially, you're buying that same insurance policy from Proper, where you have $0 on the building because you don't own the building. You insure your content coverage, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in furniture. You insure your potential loss of revenue for a claim, again, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of loss of revenues in the event of a claim, and then $1 million in liability. And your landlord is now named as additional insured. So if your short-term rental guest is suing you, Judah, your company as the re-renter and the owner of the real estate, your real estate owner or landlord is additionally insured on our policy, and you're both covered under the $1 million coverage for the liability. Very large re-rent or rental arbitrage companies like Sonder, for example, they have the financial capacity to go out and buy these extremely robust commercial insurance policies with nationwide coverage on one insurance. They can pay, 50, 60, 70, maybe even upwards of $100,000 a year for insurance coverage for this super robust thing for all their properties. But for the standard rental arbitrage client, you're looking anywhere from, it could be 5 upwards to 50, right? I mean, if you're doing 50 sublets, I mean, you're running a pretty good business right there. But that's where our policy really comes into play. You're looking at an average cost of around $400 to $500 a unit, essentially, for that rental insurance. So like $40 a month. But you got to keep in mind, you're buying a commercial product at this point in time, and commercial insurance is inherently more expensive. So it's just part of your business expense. Okay, my insurance per month is now going to be $40 or $50 a month to cover my sublet and protect my landlord on liability.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It has been said that co-founder Darren Pettyjohn, that there's a 93-page contract that kind of details the coverage of the homeowner coverage will be covered under your policy. Has that contract extended for coverage over the past year, say due to like some of the recent events that has happened?
Well, we've we've added in our bed bug coverage. So that's some extra pages. If a property doubles as a primary residence, there's some extra pages in there. So depending on the real estate, condos are there's not as many pages. But you could be anywhere from 88 to 110 pages in our policy. But ultimately, I mean, the coverage is essentially the same between in all 50 states. There's, Massachusetts, we have to add some extra pages because they have some stuff. State of New York, California, they, have their own certain contract language that you have to have at the end of it about, you can't sue the state of California for this or that, or certain exemptions, whatever it might be. But ultimately, it's all the same stuff. It's an outline of liability coverage. It's an outline of property coverage. Our policy, it's what's called special form all risk. That means that all risks are covered except for what's named as an exclusion. Those 8 or so exclusions on liability that I was talking about. And then on the property coverage side, it's about 18, I believe, 18 exclusions, but these are all standard exclusions that are found in all insurance policies. So things like terrorism, things like government action, things like wear and tear or mechanical breakdown of appliances, those things just aren't covered in home insurance, and it's a standard exclusion. But you're not going to find exclusions or limitations written in the contract about, again, vacancy, animal and pet damage is not excluded, fire, certain types of water damage, certain coverages are built back in, and that's what that 88 to 110 pages is outlining. Now, we don't expect you as a policyholder to sit down and spend 2 hours reading every single line of the policy and understanding it, because there are areas that it says is excluded, and you're going to circle that item and give us a call and ask us, like, it says collapse is excluded. Yeah, but you have to go further down in the bottom of the contract, another 60 pages through, and you're going to see that collapse is actually built back in via endorsements. So that's why our proposal is super detailed, so you can ask those questions via that. But yeah, I mean, we haven't shortened the contract. We've only added pages, because whenever we add coverage, you have to add more pages to it.
Awesome. I think that's really great to hear, especially for those looking to get started. Now, you talked a little bit about legal defense. Can you kind of explain how a policyholder would be protected under this legal defense?
Yeah, so we kind of went over two types of liability insurance, but there's actually 3 types of liability insurance. Personal liability, that's for you, an individual. You're at the supermarket and you run into grandma and she sues you for a hurt hip. That's personal liability. And then you have premises liability that we talked about. Brady Mills, his example, landlord insurance, $500,000, only covers on the property line. And then you have commercial liability, a lot more broader form of coverage, et cetera, et cetera. Now, within those 3 types of liability insurance, you have 2 different types of coverage. You have an above and beyond type of liability, or a claims made. On a claims made style policy, which is a very weak form of coverage and almost nobody sells it anymore, so I highly doubt anybody carries this, but what that means is you might have $1 million limit of insurance, but your legal defense is part of that $1 million limit. That is bad, because if you get sued for $500,000 and then your legal defense is another $1 million, you have a $500,000 out-of-pocket expense because you went beyond your $1 million limit, right? Then you have what most insurance is, which is legal defense is above and beyond your limit of coverage. So your only out-of-pocket is if the settlement is above your limit, which is why people buy umbrellas. Most people don't sue for more than $1 million unless they're become paralyzed or you have a situation like Orinda. But we broken hip example, California, guy slips and falls, breaks his hip, $750,000 claim. Legal defense on that was about a 2-year item. Legal defense on that was probably another $250,000 plus. That's not part of the $1 million limit. That's above and beyond. So you get sued for $500,000, but the legal defense is $5 million because it's a long, drawn-out battle. Lloyd's of London is paying that $5 million for legal defense. It's not coming out of your pocket.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great to know.
Yeah, it's not particular to commercial liability. Like I said, most liability coverage these days, your legal expense is covered above and beyond your limit of insurance, but not saying there's not policies out there still that don't do that. So something to be on the lookout for. Definitely ask how legal expense is handled on your liability. And of course, that question should come after you know for certain that your liability coverage is even going to respond for a vacation rental activity.
Absolutely. So a few more questions, Nick. I know we're approaching an hour. Just a little bit about, who you are and before you got started with property insurance. I mean, what qualifies you to be actually teaching us this?
Yeah, I grew up in Montana. I've lived out here. Oh gosh, I was born in Seattle. Lived there for my family. Started to raise my brother and I in Seattle area. Then we took vacation out here one time, and we never went back. So I've been in Montana for a long time now. I think I'm going on 26 or 27 years out here. I got into insurance 6 years ago or so, 2012, 2013. Very close friend of mine, his dad is an extremely successful State Farm agent. And him and I were talking. I needed something to do after college. I wasn't sure. I was working in construction. Construction's a great market out here in Bozeman where I'm at. But he said, insurance is a great business. It takes everything into account. You have to be a business operator. You have to run a business. You have to be in marketing. You're in customer service. You're in accounting. It's a mix of all things. So I initially went into doing insurance as a private contractor. So got my license. You do your insurance schooling, which is not terribly complicated. But then you get into estate planning and trying to become a certified estate planner. And that's what I did for a number of years. I ran my own business effectively. Land preservation for farmers and ranchers is a big thing out here because a lot of farmers and ranchers are unfortunately dying off, and their kids don't want to take over the land. So we have to protect that wealth, distribute it to the family within their needs, will and testament, stuff like that. So I did that from 2013 till 2016. I had known Darren Pettyjohn through some other mutual contacts, had heard that he was going to be starting his own business, getting into this market. I've just always really liked real estate. And so I wanted to jump on board when there was an opportunity, and the opportunity arose early 2016, and I came on board. I took it very seriously to read through and understand every line item of our contract, and then understand where the gaps are in other insurance. On top of that, just taking it upon myself to learn about the industry. What do hosts and homeowners run up against? What are your problems with community ordinance? What type of restrictions might be in your county? Who are you using for background information? Do you need referrals or want help or assistance? With pricing, we have contacts for that. Are you looking for security or safety? We have contacts for that to help you out. We partner with the top companies in the industries, and as our national sales manager, my primary duty, at least in my eyes, is to understand all aspects of what is going on for the individual host. And I think using that and then training our agents in such a way, your members, when they call us, are going to get that feel of, I'm actually talking to somebody who understands what I'm doing. They know the short-term rental market. We know what troubles you're potentially facing, and we know the gaps in your coverage. We almost never don't even need to see your insurance policy. You can just tell us who you're covered through, and we pretty much know what limitations you're up against on your coverage. So I guess in a roundabout way to answer your question there, Judah, not only myself, but our entire staff collectively has an education and a knowledge and puts the time into researching. So we know what you're up against. We know more than any insurance agent who's been in the business for 40 years. I can guarantee that. You can talk to a lifelong insurance agent about short-term rentals, and they're just not going to be able to answer any of your questions. They're not going to be able to have the conversations about liability and property coverage. They just don't have any experience in it, which is where a benefit for your as a business partner for what you're doing as a vacation rental, talking to a company that only sells one product and it's the one product specifically designed for what business you're engaging in, is going to be a huge benefit to you as you try to operate a successful short-term rental.
So, members are sold. What would be the onboarding process that they would actually go through from start to finish? Like, could you take us through that process for those who are looking to sign up with you right now?
Yeah, step number one is you got to get a quote and a consultation. You can do that via our website. Quote request online takes 5 to 10 minutes. Simple property details. You just put in your name, your contact info, phone number, and email, how you heard about us. It's going to ask for a property address, an online listing, if you have one. Once we want to know what year the property was built, how much insurance you want on certain things, how many bedrooms you're advertising. If there's other structures, we know there's people out there who have camps with like 2, 3, sometimes 5 different structures on the property. So make sure you get all those on. If you have more than one structure, it's going to take you more than 10 minutes to fill it out, but just get us those details. Typically within 24 hours, the agent in our office who is licensed in that particular territory is going to call you from our Bozeman office. You're going to get a phone call from a 406 number. That's one of our agents, either myself, it could be Bob, Graham, Jordan, Ian, Wyatt, Cade, all depends on where you're at. And then they're going to go through the details of our coverage and answer all your questions. That consultation process is typically about 15-minute phone call. Unless you have a lot of questions, it could be a little bit longer, but all up to you, on how long you want that process to take. Once that is complete, we're going to send you a detailed email with your quote attached. We're going to go over underwriting items. Maybe you have some exterior steps that need a handrail put in. That's a liability issue. So maybe you have these 5 or 6 steps leading up to a porch, no handrail. We're gonna tell you, hey, you need to put a handrail in. You don't need to do it today, but we're going to give you 30 to 60 days to get a handrail up, and you need to send me a picture of it, so we know you're within what our underwriters are looking for. Or maybe, hey, you got a trampoline in the backyard. You got to take that trampoline down. That's a big liability problem. So we're going to have that conversation by looking at the online listing and talking with the consumer. Once you get that email, if you don't have any other questions, you can sign up for insurance effectively the click of a button. There's a link that says click here to purchase policy. You're going to put in how you want to pay, your payment details, any mortgage information, answer some simple yes or no questions around, do you have waivers of liability? Do you have a rental agreement set up? Do you have exercise equipment? Do you have a hot tub? It's just certain things that don't come from a property question standpoint to generate premium. These are more underwriting sorted questions. You'll submit that, and then again, usually within another 24 hours, proof of insurance is delivered to you. 9 out of 10 properties are qualify for our program as long as they're short-term renting. So very, very few people are going to be declined, and if they're declined they're usually declined on the front end before you even get to the application process, because we really don't want to waste anybody's time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So once they sign up and they're ready to get going, are they appointed after they've signed up and they've chosen their proper coverage? Are they appointed like a statewide or regional wide agent, or if they need anything?
Yeah, the agent. It's a great question, Judah. We really kind of hang our hat on the customer service aspect. So if you're, and I'm just going to use Washington State as an example because that's my territory. If you're Washington State, you're going to deal with me, Nick Massey, from beginning to end throughout the entire life of your insurance policy with us for any risk located in the state of Washington. So we're in the office 8 to 5 Mountain Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, and 4 p.m. on Fridays. You call, somebody's picking up the phone. There is not a single employee in our office who is not a licensed insurance agent. So even though your rep, your agent might be out of the office for whatever, doctor's appointment, vacation, who knows, but that doesn't matter, because whoever picks up the phone, they're going to be able to assist you. They're going to be able to answer your questions, or they're going to get you to that agent's particular assistant. We have an assistant team of 4 here who kind of split tasks when licensed agents are gone to handle the phone and answer those questions. And so again, you're always, no matter what, between the hours of 8 and 5, you're going to get a licensed, experienced insurance agent, whether it's your person or not, to answer your particular questions.
Awesome, great. So is there any other questions or question that I didn't ask that I should have asked in terms of your coverage or
I think, no, Judah, I think you hit it pretty good. I mean, there's so much to cover. You and I could talk for another hour easily, but insurance is definitely a topic that nobody likes to drag out forever. I know most of our clients appreciate the fact that we're able to expedite the process and answer questions quickly and effectively and get them moving, because the last thing they want to do is spend a week dealing with insurance. It's the least fun topic, least fun thing to talk about. But I think the biggest takeaway for your members from this presentation is make sure you're asking specific questions when it comes to insurance. Do not buy homeowners insurance for your vacation rental. And get at least 3 quotes from reputable companies that market vacation rental. Right off the bat, I'd say, Proper, CBiz, and then talk to your local insurance agent. But just make sure you do the research, you figure out the best plan for you. Don't come into it thinking you're going to save money. If we start the phone call off based on premium, you're not gonna want to listen to what anybody has to say about actual coverage, because these policies are higher priced. So, those are really the 3 big things. Have the conversation, do your research, and don't be startled by how much it costs. At the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is tax deductible anyways, so it shouldn't really be that big of a deal if our policy is $500 more a year than what you're paying now.
Hey, thanks again for watching, guys. Come follow us on social media. Instagram at BNB Amplify, Facebook at BNB Amplify. Also, join our free Facebook group, Vacation Rental Branding Success for Airbnb, Verbio, and HomeAway. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications.